Hey guys, it's Krista Watson here from Christa Quilts, back with another fun chat. It's finally time to spill the beans on a secret project I've been working on for the last few years, and I'm so excited. My brand new book, How Do I Quilt It, is going to be published July 25th, 2022. So if you're watching this in June, it's just over a month away, and this wonderful new volume can be in your hands. It's truly been a labor of love, and I have to say, I think it's my best book yet. As you may know, I've been on the road teaching my techniques nationally and internationally since 2015. And each time I meet with an enthusiastic group of students in person, I'm always asking them, what are your trouble spots? How can I break down the process? How can I make it easier for you to have success with every quilt you make? Well, this book is the answer to that question. How Do I Quilt It has been years in the making, and it combines all of my tips and techniques from teaching, and it's also based on my popular lecture of the same name. This book basically walks you through the entire process of making a quilt so that you can have success from start to finish. Although there's a heavy emphasis on machine quilting, I also include tips on pre-washing, choosing fabrics, thread, batting, all the tools and supplies that you'll need to have a successful project. The book includes 3 different quilt patterns, all made 3 different ways for a total of 9 beautiful quilts. The reason I did it this way is so that I could show you different techniques on the same quilt. Each of the 3 patterns includes a quilting plan for walking foot quilting, free motion, or custom quilting, where you're going to combine both techniques for a beautiful finish. And you know what? Even if you don't make any of the projects in the book, you'll still want to read it from cover to cover so that you can take those techniques and tips and apply them to any quilt in your UFO pile. So now I'm excited to share with you a virtual trunk show of all 9 quilts from the book, along with plenty of details so you can actually see the machine quilting on each one. Now stick around to the end for a special offer for everyone who pre-orders the book before it comes out. Here's a beauty shot of all 3 versions of daisy chain, the first pattern included in the book. At 90 inches by 90 inches, it's quite a big quilt, but you'll have no problems quilting it when you follow my step-by-step instructions. For the walking foot quilting plan, I teach you how to quilt random straight lines diagonally across the quilt. You'll learn easy ways to mark the quilt, and I even give you permission to ditch the marking altogether and quilt organically and imperfectly instead. The all-over free motion design I chose for daisy chain is called Doodle Flowers, and the best part is this design really helps hide any imperfections in your piecing. Simply quilt a loop or flower anywhere you don't want your seams to show, and no one's ever going to know. The custom quilting plan is called Chain Links. You'll quilt straight lines to anchor and secure the quilt first, then you'll fill in the blocks and background with several different free motion motifs. You can follow along the designs that I show in the pattern, or you can refer to the Machine Quilting Gallery to pick and choose your favorite designs. You can mix and match them to your heart's content. The second quilt pattern is called Loose Weave, and it's shown in 3 different colorways. Fabric selection is easy. Just use your favorite colors along with a contrasting background, and you'll stitch this quilt top in a hurry. For the walking foot quilting plan, you'll practice dividing and conquering, stitching in the ditch in a few key areas of the quilt, and then filling in the design with more straight lines in both directions. The hardest part about quilting this design is knowing when to stop. For the continuous free motion plan, you'll learn to quilt circuit board, one of my modern geometric designs that pair nicely with the minimalist vibe of this quilt. Of course, you can pick from dozens of other quilting motifs that are included in the book, and I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into one of your favorite quilts to make when you are short on time. The custom quilting plan is called Fire and Ice, and it's much easier to stitch than it looks. It's all about adding texture to your quilt to hide the imperfections, and you can choose how loose or densely you'd like to quilt it. Now, the third and final pattern included in the book is called Pinwheel Tessellations. Use up your favorite pre-cut strips or scraps from your stash when you try out one of the 3 different colorways. The walking foot plan is literally the easiest design you can quilt. You simply can't go wrong by stitching wavy lines across your quilt. They are fast, fun, and foolproof, and the best part is there's no marking involved whatsoever. Simply follow the seam lines as a guide or quilt them more randomly. The choice is completely up to you. For the free motion plan, I decided to quilt a funky edge-to-edge motif that I call Crackle. Here's a fun fact. I've actually designed a couple of fabrics of the same name. But can you guess which came first, the fabric design or the quilting motif? I'll never tell. Sometimes my quilting inspires my fabric design, and sometimes it's the other way around. For the final custom quilting plan, I pulled out all the stops. I quilted a different motif in each of the rows of pinwheel blocks. This quilting plan is called Angles and Curves because I took turns switching between angular geometric designs and softer curving motifs in every other row. When I'm on the road teaching, I've noticed that some of my students really like the soft curvy designs while others love the modern edgy look of those geometrics, so I wanted to give you plenty of ways to practice both. I call this quilt my machine quilting sampler. It's a great way to practice your skills, and when you quilt on busy fabrics, no one is ever going to notice your imperfections. The gallery of machine quilting designs includes dozens more ideas stitched out on regular quilt blocks with plenty of diagrams so you can see how to work your way around the seams and learn how different thread colors are going to affect the overall look. In my book, I share that the best chance of success comes when you assemble a handy toolbox of the important things that are going to make your quilting successful and when you take the time to properly prepare the quilt. These are tips and techniques that I have developed in my 25 years of machine quilting. And you know what? Sometimes I feel like I'm just getting started and there's a lot more to learn. In my book, I include an in-depth, step-by-step photo tutorials of how I do my basting process, along with what else you can do to secure your quilt. So the first thing I do is I take the quilt top and backing outside, spread them on a plastic table, and then spray a generous amount of 505 adhesive on the wrong side of the top and the back. Then I bring the layers inside to assemble them on my design wall. I'll use a couple of pins to secure it to the wall, and then I'll smooth it all out with my hands and a long acrylic ruler. I'll repeat this process with the batting, which I previously cut so that it's larger than the quilt top, but it's smaller than the backing, and I don't worry about lining things up perfectly. I'll repeat this process again when adding the quilt top. The nice thing about using a design wall is I can get super close to the quilt to smooth it all out. Then I use specialty batting shears to trim off the excess batting and backing, and I'll iron both sides to help set the glue and to get out any wrinkles. Now, if you want to see a live video of my spray basting process, check out some of my other tutorials to see a speedy version. But you want to know what my #1 recommended tool for successful machine quilting is? It's a nice large table that will give you plenty of room to hold up the quilt while you're stitching. I actually use a table that I designed in conjunction with Arrow called the Christa Cabinet. I helped design it so it would have enough space for machine quilting to hold up the weight of the quilt, and what's very important about my table is it gives you an L-shaped work surface. Your machine is in front of you, you have a little bit of room off to your left and beside you, forming that L, which is where most of the weight of the quilt is going to be while you're pushing it under the machine. It's a game changer, I'm telling you. My Christa table also includes quilt blocks which can attach to the sides of the table so that your quilt is not going to fall off the edges. Now, the wonderful things about these quilt blocks, they can attach to any other table that's currently out there. Isn't that great? So I took a couple of short videos of some of the quilts I was making, and I want to share just a little bit of a teaser with you. This is one of my other tips. If you want to quilt straight-ish lines and you don't want to have to mark them, use painter's tape instead. So here's how I do that. When I quilted the straight lines of daisy chain, I used painter's tape to mark some of the lines. The gloves I'm wearing help grip the quilt as I'm pushing it through the machine so my stitches stay relatively smooth. And I don't get hung up on whether or not they're all the same size, because the more you quilt your quilt, the less the imperfections are going to show. On my machine, I'm using the built-in dual feed and an open toe so I can see what I'm doing. But this is the exact same technique as using a walking foot, so take my tips and just adapt them to your particular situation. I'll use my hands to smush the tape on the quilt as I stitch so that it stays straight while I quilt the entire line of stitching. Then I'll reuse the tape a few times until it loses its stickiness. I also used smaller pieces of tape when quilting the black and white version of loose weave for the random crosshatch quilting plan. Basically what I'm doing is using the tape to extend the seam lines in between the blocks so I have a guideline to follow. I'll usually just eyeball the distance when I'm quilting wavy lines, but if I'm stitching straight lines, the tape helps keep everything lined up. Again, I'm stitching with the needle right next to the tape for exact stitch placement, but when I quilted the randomly spaced lines in the rest of the quilt, I just placed my presser foot next to the tape or next to a previously stitched line, and then I changed the needle position to vary the line spacing. So I hope you enjoyed that peek into my brand new book, How Do I Quilt It? I really poured as many tips and tricks as I could, and I put a lot of myself into that book because I wanted you to feel as if I'm right there in your sewing studio cheering you on. There is so much packed into this book. In addition to the complete quilting plans and instructions for making the 9 quilts showcased in the book, I've also included dozens of bonus machine quilting designs for you to try. There's a whole gallery of walking foot and free motion quilting with examples stitched out on actual quilted blocks so that you can see how to get in and out of seams. These examples include diagrams, step-by-step instructions, plus bonus ideas for you to try. Pretty much, if there was space in the book, I added extra bonus tips so that you can have as much fun quilting your quilts as I do. So, how do you get your hands on a copy of How Do I Quilt It? Very simple. Just go to my website, shop.christaquilts.com, and place your pre-order now. It's not going to ship until July 25th, but that time is going to go very quickly. And if you're watching this after the fact, you can go ahead and get your copy now. But there's a special bonus for anyone who pre-orders their book before July 25th, 2022. I'm going to throw in an extra pattern just for you so you can practice your skills. This is one of my patterns that I actually print and produce and sell on a regular basis. Now the fun part about it, it's going to be a mystery to you because I'm going to choose one that I think I'll know that you'll like. And what's more, I've actually created some really cute stickers that I'm going to throw into your package as well. So make sure you head on over to shop.christaquilts.com and reserve your copy now. And you know what else? Everyone who orders their book directly from me gets a special bonus. I'm going to sign it with my special sparkly pen that's full of magical Christa Quilts pixie dust that's guaranteed to make you a better quilter, I promise. As you can tell, I'm so excited about my brand new book and I can't wait to get it into your hands. So order your copy now. I'm here to cheer you on every step of the way. Until next time, happy quilting.